Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
All right, great to be with you. We'll get to basketball in a moment. We'll start with wrestling. So let's go over to what we outlined as goals going in. Winning the national title.
Yes.
Getting as many individual champions as possible. Could they get 10 All-Americans? Well, they won their 4th national title and their 12th in the last 14 years.
Not bad.
Incredible accomplishment. They got 10 All-Americans, the second time it's ever happened. 2001 Minnesota is the only other time. So that's incredible. They set a scoring record, which we did not talk about.
177 points.
But did.
And they had 2 champions.
And 2 champions. That's 40 now for Cale Sanderson, under Cale Sanderson.
And they had 8 additional athletes on the podium over the course of the 3 days as well.
Right.
The second team to ever accomplish this, Josh Barr, Luke Lillidahl, Braden Davis, Bo Bartlett, Shane Van Ness, Kasich, Haynes, and Kirk Fleet. All got All-Americans and all cracked podiums of some capacity.
Yet.
I see where you're going with this, and I'm excited.
There are people that are like, yeah, that's great. Yeah. Because of the 2 individual champions. I think people sensed they could get as many as 4 to 6, probably 5.
Yeah.
And didn't. And 1 seeds didn't win, and Bo Bartlett didn't win. Now, they racked up points because of how they wrestled and the pride that they showed in wrestling back to get as high a placement as possible. But this is what I want to point out about it. This is a prime example of how great the program truly is because this showcases to each and every one of you that take it for granted and assume it's going to happen that winning's easy.
Yes.
Winning is incredibly difficult, and that's why it's so gratifying. Winning is just not showing up and they're going to roll over on you.
Yeah.
You have to earn every point you get. You have to earn every time that you're able to thwart an attack to keep them from scoring a point. The depth of Penn State with 10 All-American wrestlers and wrestling back with all those third places they had. I think there was a 5th as well. Kirk Fleet didn't wrestle.
He got 6.
He got 6, but it's because he didn't wrestle. He was injured. To get 3 finalists, 2 winners, what Carter Storace has done.
5. The first ever, and probably the only one who will ever have 5.
Right. 5, because of hopefully we never have to go through the COVID thing again. And to do it at a new weight class against a 2-time champion that he had never faced before.
He didn't face a schlub. He didn't face Kyle F. He faced someone who's actually good at what they do.
But he had never faced him before because they weren't in the same weight class. Carter had been in 174. And it was a terrific match, and he scored late and won. And it was incredible. And to do this, to be consistently that good, and to be always working at his craft in a program that doesn't think about yesterday, it thinks about today and tomorrow. He's the ultimate thinking about today and then thinking about tomorrow. You don't look back unless you're asked about it. Looking back doesn't get you anywhere. Carter Storace doesn't look back. He is always looking forward to what is today's challenge, what will be tomorrow's challenge. And that, of course, is how Cale Sanderson thinks. Mitchell Messenbrink. Look, I want to get to the part that was wrong. And I am completely with Cale Sanderson on this. You do realize at the end of that bout, they called Messenbrink for a stall. Excuse me, over here in the back. I mean, Those two guys have now wrestled 14 minutes in the last 2 weeks. And the other guy, Caliendo, who, by the way, to his credit, did a great job of countering and so forth, was backing up 12 of the 14 minutes. Every time you turn around, he's going back. Because, of course, Mitchell's taking a shot.
Yeah.
Going back. Right? But you called him for a stall? Are you out of your minds? You got to be out of your mind. The other guy backs up for 12 out of 14 minutes. You don't think at some point he's not stalling out there? Right? Every time you turn around, going back. Well, but that guy's stalling. He's the one attacking. Right? Messenbrink, undefeated. Tremendous. Very few people can wrestle the way he does. Just constantly probing and attacking and probing and attacking and probing and attacking. That's why he has all those bonus points. He's fun to watch. He takes the sport from the tie-up, let's have something happen here, to like he's always happening, perpetual mode. He's great for fans to watch. Casual fans love to watch Mitchell wrestle. They do. Carter, they love watching because they just love watching one of the great champions ever. Now, the heavyweight.
Before we get to the heavyweight, if I may. So going into the night, they, I believe, changed the slotting of when everyone was going to wrestle. They wanted to put Carter first.
Right.
And he, even himself, I believe, talked about it, saying, why did they put me first?
Right.
Like, that's weird. And the reason that people felt
TV.
like did it was TV, so Gable Stevenson would also go last as like a coronation to him. Well, people wanted March Madness. We got March Madness at the end.
Right. But, well, what they wanted was they wanted him first.
Yes.
I'm just going to guess as to what, you got to try to think like ESPN thinks. You really got to sit back and really kind of mentally keep it as simple as possible because that's how they think.
You're right.
Sorry. Nope. I don't apologize for that. So they want to draw you in. Here's a piece of history. Right? And then they want to close out and keep you engaged because you're going to see another piece of history. Oh, whoops.
Oh, boy.
So now we
get history.
Okay, now we get to the end. And Wyatt Hendrickson transferred, can't wrestle a fifth year at Air Force, so he wrestles this year at Oklahoma State for David Taylor. Now he's going to now get into his 5-year Air Force commitment. And it was dramatic. He never backed down. 15 seconds to go, he gets the big move, and he puts Stevenson down. Yeah. And then doesn't let him get out.
Nope.
It's dramatic. Everybody's yelling and screaming. And then I hear it's the greatest upset of all time. I'm sitting there going, what? What are you talking about? Really? I mean,
it wasn't the greatest upset.
Okay, now let's start with this. How many? The last I checked, Stevenson, to his credit, has won twice.
Yes.
Plus the Olympic gold medal, but he's won twice. Anthony Cassar beat him in the final. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want in any way to lessen, because it's hard to win one.
Yes.
And if you want perspective on greatness winning twice, who's Wyatt Hendrickson's coach? David Taylor. How many did he win?
Quite a few.
Twice. He won twice. Won twice. Plus, David himself has also won an Olympic gold medal. Okay? So that's how hard it is to do it. Hendrickson was not a 12-12 wrestler going in.
Yeah. He was the 2 seed.
He was undefeated, which means he hadn't lost all year.
Yeah.
All right?
What I would change the wording to from greatest is to most dramatic, because it did go down to the end.
Yeah,
it went down to the end, and it was that last 15 seconds where he flips him, makes the move, and then closes it out, and then it's over. Right. It was dramatic.
It was dramatic.
Wasn't greatest.
Okay, the greatest upset ever. Like greatest upset ever. It's not like greatest upset ever. The
greatest upset would be me against Gable Stevenson. That would be the greatest.
I mean, the U.S. Olympic hockey team beat the Soviets, who were beating NHL teams.
We've seen, what,
had beaten that team 10-3 2 weeks earlier in Madison Square Garden. Okay, Henriksen and Stevenson had not wrestled in 4 years. He wrestled him one time. He lost to him in 2021.
We've seen 16s beat 1s. Right. We've seen a lot. A lot of upsets have happened.
I mean, is it an upset? Of course it's an upset. Is it the greatest upset? Oh, please. I mean, that's okay. This is what bugs me about this generation of sports. Everything is the greatest whatever that we just saw. I'm like going, I thought it was unexpected? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Was it Buster Douglas beating Mike Tyson?
It was dramatic, is what it
was. Dramatic.
If he'd worded it as the most dramatic upset ever, I would have been like,
and there's no question who the heavy favorite was out there. It was Gable Stevenson. Yeah. He earned it to being a heavy favorite. And Henriksen earned the win. He beat him.
Yeah.
He beat him.
This is why wording matters.
But it's not, I mean, that's why today you'll see it like on a historic night, and they take the stat line, they draw it out 10 spots. You're like going, okay, that's okay. That's how we got to historic. Hey, come on. It's a great, great moment for him, a great moment for his family. It's a great moment for Oklahoma State. It's a great moment for Air Force. And was it surprising? No question. Is it the greatest upset ever?
No.
Last I checked, who's the guy from Iowa and won 3 in a row?
Ooh.
It was last year, lost. Mother went crazy in the...
Yeah. I forget who.
Okay, that's kind of a big deal. Right? I mean, that tells you Stevenson losing tells you how incredible Carter Starachi is.
Yeah. Dude changed weight classes and did what he did.
Won 5 in a row. That's how difficult it is. Suppose they're hyping up Stevenson as the greatest wrestler ever in this country. I mean, Cael Sanderson never lost. I heard Dan Gable was pretty good. I saw Gable wrestle too. I heard he was pretty good. Just stop with the Guess what? On this particular night, for the first 6 minutes and 30 seconds, Henriksen did a great job of putting himself in a position to have the moment.
That's why whenever
he wasn't behind 7-2.
This is why I've heard you and Dick so many times say you need to get into the last 3 minutes of basketball game within a shot or two. If you can get within 4 to 6 points at the end.
Talk about that all the time.
And get yourself just within striking distance, where all of a sudden a basket goes your way, you get a turnover, all of a sudden tie game. You can put yourself in that position, where we saw a lot of teams this weekend, which we'll get to, put themselves there and then destroy themselves at the end and capitulate. Like if you put yourself in that spot, which Henriksen did, you give yourself the chance to go on and win it at the end.
Right.
And that's exactly what he did. And it was one of the most dramatic upsets ever.
It was
incredibly dramatic.
Incredibly dramatic. There's no getting around it.
The end of the night, and the whole, it was hyped up. It was the whole thing. It was the end of it. And also, as you mentioned last week on the show, the president was then also there.
Right.
So it
and being in the Air Force, being in the Air Force now, of course, he's at Oklahoma State for the 1 year because that's the only way he could get a 5th year.
But I believe he's a second lieutenant in the Air Force, I believe.
And he's on the mat and he saluted the president. Well, that's what a military man does.
Yeah.
All right? That's your commander-in-chief. This has nothing to do with politics. Yes. Zero. Right? If Joe Biden were the one sitting there, he would have saluted him as well. Okay, if Barack Obama had been sitting there, he would have saluted him as well. Okay, it has nothing to do. It has to do with the person in power. That is the commander in chief, and he did that. It was a great moment. But again, How many times did he lose this year? None.
Yeah.
Okay. This wasn't the 32nd seed suddenly out of nowhere, like.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
Right? It's like, okay.
Yeah.
And I think to refer to it as such a tremendous upset kind of takes away to me in some ways about how good he actually is.
Yeah, it took away from the moment a little bit. It was hyped. It hyped it up at the split second it happened, and then all of a sudden you reflect on it, and you're like,
And I understand the emotion in the moment.
Yeah,
of announcing it in the moment. Mm-hmm. That part I do get because you're in the moment, right? But with a little bit of perspective, this is a tremendous, unexpected win, right? But you watched it play out, and guess what? He went toe-to-toe with him for the first 6.5 minutes, right? Made one small mistake, that was it, and then he took advantage of his mistake. He got him, and he won, and that's to his credit, and it's just a great moment for him. But for Penn State, that's the part that, as I said before, and we'll get to basketball in a moment, but what Carter Strachey accomplished is jaw-dropping.
5.
Because winning is hard. It's never assumed. All these championship bouts, you want to know how he started each one? Nothing. Okay? It was up to him to make it happen, and he did. And he changed weight classes this year. And he did. Mitchell Messenbrink can tell you how hard it is. He had an unbelievable season a year ago. He lost in the final.
Yeah.
Right? This year, he went all the way to the promised land. And nobody beat him this year. That's the example of why winning is hard. Gable Steveson, great career, phenomenal career, legendary career. Okay? But he didn't win 4 national championships. Winning one's hard. He won 2. Credit to him for winning 2 and an Olympic gold medal. Because we watched the Magic Man here and David Taylor was and is as beloved as any wrestler that's been here. As beloved as anybody. And he won an Olympic gold medal like Steveson, and he won 2. Now, Strachey's won 5. Ed Ruth won 3. You know, there have been others, but there's something about Taylor that was just met. But Taylor was also in a stacked weight class and so on, and he won 2. I never use the word only when it comes to championships. Never. That is for the immature. Well, they only won 1.
They won.
Do you know how hard it is to win 1?
If you win a championship, you do not have to speak to anybody anymore. That is how I view it. I sat there after Giannis and the Bucks won their championship, and I said, he doesn't have to apologize to a single person anymore for anything he does. He's a champion. He won.
That's right.
Jokic, same thing. Winning is tough. The Celtics now, they lost multiple years. They got close. They got to the finals, lost the Warriors, all those things. They won one. Doesn't matter how good their team was, they still had to win. The Heatles in their first year notably did not win.
Right.
It is ridiculously tough to win in a sport. There was only one champion in every sport, in everything they do.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers, who met with the Steelers late last week, they don't have anything yet. Well, he's only won 1 Super Bowl. Really? Really? He's won only 1. No. Do you know how hard it was and is to win 1? I mean, we have to understand the greatness of winning.
Yes.
Right? And stop with the legacies and the dynasties and things like that. Guess what Penn State Wrestling's doing today? They're back to work.
Yep.
But today they're back to work, getting ready for 25-26. It's difficult. Right? You and I just watched the basketball season where Penn State lost 8 games by 5 points or less. Right? Now we're rejoicing in watching Maryland win yesterday on the Derek Queen play at the end. Hey, they finally got one. You want to know what Maryland's record was a year ago in games by 5 points or less? 1-10.
Yep.
They were 1-10 last year in games decided by 5 points or less. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's how close it is. Mm-hmm. Michigan's won 14 games by 4 points or less. Oh, they're a great team. They know how to win. No. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. When it's that close, when it's that close, good fortune comes into play for you.
Mm-hmm. Ball's got to bounce right. Shots fall or shots don't fall.
You got to get the right call. Right? Then to your credit, you do make some shots or you do make the defensive play. Mm-hmm. But there isn't that much separation between you and the opposition when there's 14 of those. Not much at all.
No.
Okay? Because interesting, when Michigan's lost, they've lost. They played Michigan State, got blown out. They played Purdue, they got blown out. I mean, when they've lost, they've really lost.
Yeah.
Right? So we have to appreciate winning. It is hard. It cannot be assumed. And, I'll give you an example. Tom Brady won 7 Super Bowls. Do you realize there was a 10-year gap between Super Bowl win 3 and Super Bowl win 4?
Yeah.
It was 10 years. Now, they were around it, so you felt like they were there every year, but they weren't. And they lost 2 of them to the Giants.
You know, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time is, we've discussed on this show, Dan Marino. Did Dan Marino ever win, Steve?
Nope. He won 1 Super Bowl. Actually, he went to 1 Super Bowl, and he lost to the 49ers.
Exactly. Drew Brees went to 1 Super Bowl, won 1 Super Bowl. Great.
It's just, you have to have so many things beyond your own personal work ethic to fall into place. And it's hard.
Injuries, schedule, balls bouncing your way,
everything.
weather.
I mean, look, Starachi wrestled through an injury last year. He wrestled through an injury and won. Okay, he didn't think a month ahead of time he'd be injured going in. Right now, Penn State men's ice hockey's in. They're going to play Maine.
In Allentown.
Which is terrific. Maine's a terrific team. Hockey East. I mean, they're just terrific. But this Penn State men's ice hockey team has been just a joy to watch develop from, they rolled through a non-conference schedule against teams that they probably in Vegas would be favored against. Early in the Big Ten schedule, it's a struggle. Sergeyev is hurt. Jimmy Dowd's hurt. But now Sergeyev comes back, steadies the ship. Aiden Fink puts together an unbelievable season. He's a Hobie Baker finalist. Right? You look at Ben Schoen gets 3 goals. I think Ben Schoen probably shouldn't even be out there right now after everything that's happened to him in the past year. But he's out there playing. He's doing a great job. They've got some depth on lines. They got a lot of confidence. A lot of confidence.
They are now, playing with joy.
They're going to need all of that, but they're also going to have the home ice advantage. Maine will travel well, but remember, part of that arena is going to be Quinnipiac.
Yeah. They're in Allentown, which is about 5.5 hours from Quinnipiac, if not mistaken, give or take. About 4.
Quinnipiac, that's a 4.
Yeah.
I'd say 4.
And the reason I'm saying this is because I grew up in the town next to Quinnipiac, Hampton, Connecticut.
Yeah, I always love. Nobody can say it.
No,
the Quinnipiac thing always cracks me up.
Quinnipiac, and I'm like, that's not. No,
I like. Just follow my lead here. Yeah. I'll say it. Okay, but
it's Allentown. 8:30 p.m. is going to be the game for approximately the Penn State Maine matchup, and I am. You know what's interesting about that matchup is Maine would be the 1 seed, right? They're number 3, I think, technically.
3 overall, but they'd be the 1.
Yeah.
Okay, so Penn State would be 14. What's weird is that's the second game. Okay, wouldn't you want to give the winner of that game the extra 3 hours? I realize it's being done. I know
Yeah.
I'm sorry, TV.
It's being done with TV problems, and also they're doing it in the middle of the men's basketball tournament and the women's basketball tournament. So it's kind of this weird amalgamation of schedule on Friday, where I think the men's basketball games, there's one at 7 something, and there's one at 9 something, and so it's right sandwiched in the middle of them.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a funky schedule, but that game is going to happen. And we've been speaking about broadcasters a lot, the wrestling broadcasters. How about Brian Tripp and Johnny Holiday? Keeping the train rolling on the 2 broadcasts they get to go and do.
Yeah, it's great.
You get to keep going with Maryland.
Yeah, I texted Johnny. I said, enjoy staying on the West Coast. Essentially, same thing with Brian Bush. I texted him too. But the NCAA tournament, 14 SEC teams in, half are still alive.
7.
That's a record to get into the Sweet 16, 7. The Big Ten has half of its teams still alive, 4. The Big 12 has 4. And then there's the lone wolf.
Big East.
No, the ACC.
Oh, right.
1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never mind. I forgot who I thought was in it. Yeah. Okay. Never mind. I'm going crazy. Don't mind me. Sorry. For some reason, thought a Big East team was in. I don't know why I saw something about that this morning. But I keep seeing people say, oh, the SEC clearly proved that it's the best conference. Well, when you get 14 teams in, I hope 7 of them stay into the Sweet 16 at that point. Look, I hope they do.
Okay, I mean, you do have a 6 beating a 3, but the 6 beat the wounded 3.
Yeah.
Okay? I did not have Iowa State in the Sweet 16. Why? No. Because Gilbert's out for the year.
Yes.
That was a gigantic loss. So now you're playing an Iowa State team that essentially has one hand tied behind its back. So that one to me was one of those, right, that Ole Miss should have been favored to win. Okay, so that's the one is Arkansas over St. John's. St. John's, which offensively has been
or a team.
All right. When a key part of your offense is the offensive rebound, that tells you everything.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
Now, I picked St. John's to win. So let's start with that. Because I thought their defense
would hold out.
As Mike DeCourcy and I were talking last week, and I said, the problem I got with St. John's is that I said they're not really great shooting the 3. He says, Steve, let's be honest. He said, they're terrible at shooting the 3.
Yes.
It's like, okay.
Who's worse, Steve? St. John's or St. Mary's the last 5 games of the season? Our Hank made a total of 6 threes in the last 5 games.
But what did I tell you about St. Mary's?
Yeah.
I said St. Mary's the team I have zero confidence in. I just don't.
Their 3 ball has been negative.
And Alabama did something that I was really impressed with. They also did. What was bad was Alabama turned the ball over repeatedly because they were trying to play too fast. And they were not St. Mary's creating turnovers. It was Alabama turning the ball over. It was just bad plays.
They were just giving it away.
Right? But they sped them up. They sped them up. And St. Mary's, as soon as Alabama got the lead, St. Mary's does not have enough juice to come back and win a game like that. Look, they for Randy Bennett, they play exactly the style they need to play. They do need Marshallonis to go out and hit 5 or 6 threes. I got that part. But Alabama sped them up. Now, the Big Ten's big issue coming up is quite simple. They've got 4 games in the Sweet 16. In 3 of them, they will be the decided underdog because those are the 3 number 1. You know, they're all they're 4s. You know, okay, and as 4s, they're going to play 1s.
Yeah, and we'll start with Brian Bush with Michigan. So they take on Auburn. Auburn is currently favored by 7.5 points in the South.
And that's legit.
It is. They're a legit Auburn team who I was really impressed by in that Creighton game. The second half, they turned it on.
But again, what did I say? The first round for the 1s is the only round you can count on.
You got it,
right? Once you get to round 2, this is when I was talking about the Cooper Flag situation. Now, Flag could play game 1 and did. He looked fine. All right. But But a week out, I said, hey, look, they don't need him to play game one, but they absolutely need him in game two. Now, it turned out they blew Baylor out. Okay? That was the one seed that blew somebody out. Duke did. But
they got Cooper Flagg.
This is the difference in the men's tournament today than 20 years ago. Compared to 20 years ago, now you get like the top two seeds in each round. Now the game gets exponentially more difficult. I'd say 30 years ago, ones kind of had a free ride into the Sweet 16. Twos were pretty close with an exception here. They're getting to the Sweet 16. It's no longer the case because of the depth of the sport where you get to round two and you've got some games in round two.
You have, in the case of Auburn, you have Creighton, who was up at halftime with Ryan Kalkbrenner, incredible 7'1" defensive behemoth. Jemiah Neal was incredible. He didn't have his best game against Auburn, but he was incredible in the first round. And then Stephen Ashworth is a really good point guard. Jackson McAndrew can make the three ball like crazy. Like they came into that game feeling confident. And they just ran into an Auburn team in the second half with Tahad Pettiford, who just...
Pettiford played really well.
Down the stretch, he was splitting double teams like no one's business. He was getting to the basket. Cardwell played incredibly. Chad Baker-Mazzara was great, even dealing with a hip injury. Denver Jones made shots. Like, Auburn played well at the end. But that was one where you're like, maybe they don't win it. Michigan took care of business against Texas A&M after surviving a scare against UC San Diego at the end.
But you know what?
That was a good game.
But you know what? You remember, this is a lot of this Texas A&M team... I've seen a lot of the last 2 years. 2 years ago in the NCAA tournament, then saw them down in Orlando. So Coleman's still there. Anderson Garcia's still there. And above all, Wade Taylor's still there. I think Wade Taylor is a good basketball player.
Yes.
I have never once thought of him as a great college basketball player. He has built up a lot. And again, did I say he's bad? No. Did I say he's mediocre? Fair? No, I didn't say that. I said he's good. I've got a different grading scale. He's great. Now, just slow down, okay? He's good. But he's rarely been good on this stage. When Penn State played him, he did not have a good night at all.
He went 4 for 15 against Michigan.
Against Michigan, he went 4 for 15. That's about what he did against Penn State. He's rarely been good on this stage. And it's just
the player for them, Pharrell Payne, went.
He's the Minnesota transfer. Imagine what the thought process has to be for Ben Johnson sitting at home, watching Payne play for Texas A&M and watch Hawkins play for Texas Tech. That was his center and point guard last year.
Yes, seeing Payne put up 10 for 13, 6 for 9 from the free throw line, 26 points. They took care of business. So now Michigan will take on Auburn. That's a game in terms of purely the bigs alone. I'm very interested in because you have Golden and Wolf versus Janai Broome and Dylan Cardwell. Cardwell is a force. Broome is a monster. Golden and Wolf, of course, as we've seen all season, are really good. So that's going to be just a fight between those guys. I'm intrigued by that. And then you go down to the other side of that same bracket on the South is another SEC team, as you mentioned, Ole Miss. They take on Michigan State, who took down New Mexico and Donovan Dent.
Look, Michigan State does not have a great player on the team, but they're a team. They're a lot like Florida has, of course, a great player.
Walter Clayton.
Right? And, I do have a wooden ballot. Walter Clayton is on my wooden ballot. He's one of the 10 players I put on there. And Florida's deep. Right? Well, that's Michigan State. They don't have a great player. Richardson could be,
but he's been coming on. He hasn't started the season great and ended the season great.
Right, but one of the keys for them that really jump-started him is when Tom Izzo put him in the starting lineup. But they have a lot of good players. Kohler's a good player. Akins is a good player.
Cone Carr.
Carr has become a better player. Carson Cooper is a good player. Holloman, is a good player. They got a lot of good players. They don't have a great, exceptional player. So they're really good as a team. What Michigan State did not do a good job in the first half yesterday, that they then went back to their roots in the second half, is in the first half, they played good offense in the first half. But that's not their MO. Their MO is they have to play good defense, and they did not play well defensively in the first half. Then in the second half, they played much better defensively, and that's when they got the game swinging their way because that's how they win games. Their defense not only gets stops, but they then lead to fast break points, and they weren't getting that in the first half. You know, a guy like Fiddler's a good role player. He played well against Penn State. He kind of struggled a little bit yesterday, but. But they've got a lot of guys that are, the old expression, are stars in their role.
Yes.
They are the definition of, to me, which is really important, consistently good, striving to get better.
Yes.
Instead of being occasionally great.
We then make our way down to the next Big Ten team, going down to the West Conference, going just left down and then right down. So Florida survives against UConn 77-75, takes down the two-time defending champions. So UConn will not be three-peating this year. Florida knocked them off. As you mentioned, Walter Clayton had 23 in this game. Elijah Martin. By the way, the former FAU players.
Yes,
Martin,
they're all doing well.
John L. Davis, and, of course,
Vlad Golden,
all playing well. Dusty May, the coach, they're all playing well. But Florida took them down. Clayton had 23. Martin had 18. Just a strong game from them. They had 40 rebounds in the game against UConn. Liam McNeely played well for UConn down the stretch. Caravan was okay, solo ball.
But UConn almost caught him again. I mean, Florida is like in the end of games, and I've said this over and over again. I know everybody gets, not you, but people get so focused on their team. Well, we don't do this, we don't do that. Watch the other games. Who's good in the last 4 minutes? Hardly anybody. Right? Hardly anybody is. Oh, we'll see highlights of great moments.
Yeah.
So, I know we'll get to Michigan in a moment. Let's talk about Maryland. Hey, I want to give Maryland all the credit in the world. They're one of the few teams I've seen this season in that moment, and they weren't like this, by the way, all season, that understood and actually understood math.
Yes. They have 3.6 seconds left.
Let's see.
And what do they need?
Let's see now. I can take a 2 in which we're 55%. Or I could get fouled, take a free throw, and I'm 75 to 80%. Or I can take a 3, it's 35%. Which one of these percentages is the lowest?
I enjoyed post-game hearing Derek. The question was asked to Kevin Willard going into that, the timeout, withdrawing out the play. He apparently asked everyone on the team who wants to take the shot. Derek Queen, in words I cannot say on these airwaves, said, "Give me the ball."
Yeah.
And he gave him the ball. Derek Queen gets it right at the top of the key, turns, goes to his left, puts in an incredible bank shot and in.
It's a great play.
It was an incredible play, by the way.
This is after, to the credit.
Yeah.
Now I want to flip it over to Colorado State for a moment. Hey, why did I agree with him taking the 3 when I just talked about math? Because they were down 2.
Because it puts you up 1, and you have enough time to get a second shot.
I'm also the 12 seed.
You go for the knockout punch.
Okay. Okay. I'm sitting there. Okay. I'm looking over between my foul situation and looking at that team over there. I don't need overtime. Okay. I don't need overtime against that team. And I admire the fact that they said, you know what? Let's throw caution in the wind. Let's do it. And then Lake, and he played, and when Penn State beat Colorado State, he played in that game 2 years ago. All right. And he makes the play. But between your circumstances dictate what you do, right? Well, their circumstance was, hey, look, we've got a couple of guys in foul trouble. Can I go 5 more minutes with these guys? I don't know. And it was also that shot that Lake took, right, was the best shot they were going to get.
Yeah. It was the best shot. It was an open shot. It took about 8 seconds to go. So in the case of a miss, this is what we've discussed. In the case of a miss, there's 8 seconds. All of a sudden, that ball, let's say, careens out to someone. You put up a jumper. You have a second shot opportunity there. At least one more shot.
But I heard stuff this weekend. I sat back and went, what? There was a kick ball into play with 9 in the shot clock. I'm not going to say who did what here. They'll recycle the 14. What do you mean recycle the 14? Now, the guy does NBA games. So you do recycle the 14 in the NBA. You recycle the 20 in the college game. Right? On the Maryland thing, they're talking about the key was to get the ball to midcourt. They were already at midcourt when the timeout was called.
Yeah.
Right? They've got to get the ball to midcourt. They only got 3.6 seconds to come. So they're going, they already got the ball in midcourt. What are you talking about? They called the timeout at midcourt. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? You sit there like it's not like you can't make mistakes, but like these are like big mistakes.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned,
Ending on a high here for Colorado State. And I do want to shout out
because what are we hearing a lot over and over again, right? Big fella, you need to step up. All right, repeat, rinse, repeat. Come on, stop rinsing and repeating. Just do the game.
I know.
Right? I don't care if the guy saved a dog. Oh, everybody's done that. We got it. Okay, good. It's like I can read the game notes too. Let's go here. Right? You're playing for the national championship.
I do.
What does it take to get there? What do you got to do? Hey, like the other day he says, well, it's going to be a 1-1. That's a 10-team foul. He's got 2 shots. Like, what are we doing? I mean, come on. There's some basic stuff. We've got it. Okay, you're not helping the fans. Okay, I'm saying, though, that's not helping the fans when you're not around the game all the time. It's the way it is.
Colorado State also want to shout out Evans for them. Their guard. Yeah. He shot the lights out in that first round. He was incredible fun to watch.
Yep.
So they beat Memphis.
And I'm happy for Scott Sidwell because Scott is somebody I consider a friend. He's the athletic director at Colorado State. It's a great run for them.
And Nico Medved coached incredibly well, and now there's rumors of him taking a job elsewhere, which is a discussion we'll get to in a little bit of coaches. Because the next game, Texas Tech took down Drake. Texas Tech will get the aforementioned Arkansas, who took down St. John's. So the Drake was where I want to start first. Right. So it's been announced Ben McCullum is going to be taking over for Iowa.
The Drake?
The Drake element of it first. So he is going to be taking over in Iowa for Fran McCaffrey. That was put out about an hour ago or so, it looks like.
But we told you this last week. So it's not, this isn't like one of those.
And we also knew DeVry was going to be going into Indiana, and we kind of saw how this is going to work. Drake, their player, Bennett Sturtz, played all 40 minutes, by the way, in this game.
He's a good player. Those 4 Division II players he brought with him.
They came up and they played well.
They played well. They played really well. And they played together well.
Yeah. The only problem is they ran into JT Toppin and Darian Williams, who were both just incredible. Right. Williams had a smile on his face the whole game, and he rebounded the ball well. Toppin pretty much affected every shot going to the rim.
Well, he's going to have at Iowa. He's going to have to deal with Owen Freeman being in the transfer portal. Brock Harding is in the transfer portal. Right. Dix, who's a tremendous shooter, is in the transfer portal. I mean, Dix. A lot of people are going to want Dix because Dix can really shoot the ball. Right. He's going to have to deal with that. I mean, and that's part of the issue when you're changing up coaches. Roster retention becomes a really difficult proposition, which the immature don't seem to understand.
Yes. Which is why when you can bring a player with you, such as Sturtz, which he has a year left.
Right. Well, that's what happened with Dusty May. He brought Golden with him, right? And they paid out a lot of money because there's not a lot of roster retention in Michigan. Because not. No. Hey, everywhere you look like, okay, where'd that guy come from? Right, he's from Yale. He's from Auburn. He's from, right. He's from Florida Atlantic. Okay, that's the starting lineup, by the way. But the issue when you change coaches is you need to have strong NIL backing it because your roster retention is going to be difficult because people enter the transfer portal. Now, Texas Tech, you mentioned Texas Tech. They've got 2 guys that are billionaires. It's one company, but they're billionaires. They're the ones that paid $1 million for the softball player, the softball pitcher, to go to Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Okay. They want to put money in. Are you surprised Texas Tech is in the spot? I'm not. Not in the least, because they've got that kind of financial backing. Look, the SEC, money means something. Mm-hmm. Every time you turn around, I don't care what it is, controversy or success, always, okay, follow the money.
Yep.
Always. Okay? Whenever you're in an investigation, you follow the money. Whenever there's a controversy, you follow the money. Whenever you see success, follow the money. Mm-hmm. The SEC, now I know Texas Tech is in the Big 12, okay? But it's the money that is being put into their programs. Because Greg Sankey looked at it. He didn't bring in Mike Tranghese just as somebody so he has a nice name on the staff, right? He brought him in as a basketball consultant. And I'm sure, maybe one of these days we ought to get Mike on the show, right? I'm sure he looked at me and said, look, you got to invest more money in this. You have to. And when you have people who want to put money into the program, it makes a world of difference. Why do you think James Franklin has talked repeatedly about we're behind an NIL, we're behind an NIL, we're behind an NIL? I'm using his words now. Because they know they've got to compete with Oregon, which is at like 25 to 30 million. They got to compete with Ohio State, which is at 20 million. Now, I realize that the 20.5 million helps balance some of the scales a little bit because that money is internal and Penn State's going to pay the max. So it's not all going to go to football, but a vast majority is going to go to it. All right. But that's what the key is. Okay. Why is Texas Tech in the spot they're in? Because they've got two guys behind them that are just throwing money out there because they love Texas Tech. I mean, they paid $1 million for a softball pitcher. There is no way Texas Tech is going to make the money back in softball. They're not going to, but they just want to see them win.
They saw New Mexico Lobos star JT Toppin, said we want him. They went and got him. Dude is incredible.
Right? He's a really good player. Yeah. He's really good, and you can do that when you've got that kind of resource out there. I mean, what do you think? Michigan spent $1.95 for that roster? Come on, cut me a break. Okay. You know, Purdue's rock solid. That's why Indiana's such a disappointment. They've got some money in their NIL. They do.
They got Khalil Ware last year.
Right.
Like, that cost a pretty penny.
Well, what do you think? Ballo came over because they gave him a plane ticket? I mean, come on. I mean, Ballo showed up because, hey, all right, hey, gravy train, I'm going to leave Arizona. Okay, good. But that's the investment comes with it. And look, with all due respect, I want to see money go into wrestling. I want to see money go into hockey, volleyball, soccer, things like that. I got that. But, again, I grew up in a business household. So I've got a little different perspective than some people about, okay, when you look around, I always tell the story about all the machines in my father's shop. All the machines. All right. So you got to look at all the sports. They're your machines. Okay? Well, I need to invest in a welding machine because everything I do is like so much welding. You know, and you put $1 million into a press brake, which bends parts, by the way. All right? Because they're going to make the money back.
Yeah.
Right? Now, am I going to put money in the tool and die machine that's only getting limited or brings in limited work? No. I'll repair it. That's business. Okay? Ford, Lincoln, Mercury. Ask yourself, why does Mercury no longer exist? Because it was the one that was losing the money. That's business. We're in a business environment today. You've got to make sure football is really good. You have to. If you want to make all the other departments, okay, fine, and be competitive in all the other departments, you got to be really good in football. And I'm not going to put it all in football. What's the only other opportunity I have to make some coin?
Basketball.
And that's men's basketball. Okay? You can get close on the books with men's ice hockey in terms of, but that's just them being self-sufficient. okay, which is good. Okay?
Yeah.
But the other sports are not, quote, self-sufficient. Okay? The SEC knows this. Now, they don't have as many sports. They've always kept it
tight.
Yeah. Softball, baseball, you look at women's gymnastics is a big deal in the SEC. Women's volleyball is a big deal down there. But they've kept it tight, and then they picked two sports that they've gone all in on. Football's been obvious from day one.
Yeah.
They're now on the basketball bandwagon. They get it. And this is where I give the Big 12 commissioner, Brett Yormark, a lot of credit. Because, and he needs it more than anybody, because they're not getting the same TV dollars in football. But he's gone all in with the idea that men's basketball can really help us out, because he understands the business part and the supplemental part of profitability of men's basketball. That's why you've got to go all in on this. Back to Texas Tech. Hey, if you have that kind of NIL, and boy, it sure does help when you have two whales that are sitting there saying, hey, what do you need?
How much do you need when you buy?
Okay. I mean, that makes a big difference. And there's no question about that. And so there they are sitting in the Sweet 16. They're getting return on their investment, even though all they care about, their return is winning. It's not them getting money out of it. And that's where they are.
In terms of the rest of the games, the last four we have not yet discussed. In the tournament, in the Midwest region,
Duke will win.
We'll get to Duke in a second.
Duke will win.
Kentucky, Tennessee, SEC matchup.
Yeah.
And then Houston, Purdue. So the 1, 4, 2, and 3 are all in this one.
Look, so Houston and Purdue is this. The two guys that are going to be critical are going to be Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn. Because Renn, of course, inside is something that Houston will have to battle. And then Smith's going to have to do a good job of setting the tempo offensively against a great defensive team.
Yes.
And Smith, the one problem he had was in Providence. He had too many turnovers, which is, we saw him do that here. I mean, he struggled with Ace.
Yeah.
But they're going to have to do that. But they're going to have one of those other guys besides those two step up. And I'm talking about, I don't mean an inside guy. It's got to be Fletcher Lawyer. It's got to be Colvin. It's got to be Heidi. One other guy has to step up and be a three-point threat against Houston, because Houston's not going to overwhelm you with offense.
No, but LJ Cryer at any point can go nuclear, as he did in this game against Gonzaga,
LJ,
which, by the way, was a dogfight.
LJ Cryer was on my wooden list as well. I voted for LJ Cryer. I'm not going to say where, but I voted for him.
He went 6 for 11 from 3. He was feeling himself.
But you're going to have to generate enough offense against this team, because Purdue, to be honest with you, is not a great defensive team.
No.
They are not a great defensive team. But they've got to be a good offensive team in this game. The key for them in playing defense is Houston's not a great offensive team. They're not a great offensive team.
They're average.
Their offense will keep you in the game. All right?
Problem is their defense took you out of the game.
Right. And that's the whole purpose behind it. So,
and then the top part of the bracket, you mentioned Duke. They're going up against Arizona, flag. And then BYU against Alabama. By the way, wanted to bring this up because this is a fun one.
That game, the losing team, that's going to be a game first to 100.
Yes.
BYU, Alabama may be the first to 100. I love how BYU plays. Saunders is a terrific player, without question. And I think it's going to be a track meet from the start.
Yes.
Up and down, up and down. There's going to be a lot of shots in that game. It's going to be an entertaining game. And I think this is the first time I've said this in the tournament, maybe since Loyola Marymount. First one to 100 is going to win.
And by the way, I want to bring this up. And speaking of BYU, 1 year ago, John Calipari left Kentucky for Arkansas. He's now the Arkansas head coach. Mark Pope replaced him at Kentucky, leaving BYU. And Kevin Young replaced Pope at BYU. All three, Sweet 16.
Sweet 16.
That's not bad if you're any of those teams saying, what? It's pretty good.
And let's give credit where credit's due to Young, because Young changed conferences.
Yes.
Okay? He took over a team that changed conferences. Now, I realize Mark Pope had to come in and relearn the SEC. I've got that part. But for everybody, in other words, you can have a holdover in your staff that's like, okay, Tennessee does this, because Tennessee, Kentucky, you know what's interesting about that? They play twice this year. Kentucky won both games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Tennessee will be the favorite in this game.
Favored by 4.5 points.
Yep. Kentucky beat them twice this year. But as for what Young did, he had to come in and because Young had been in the NBA. I think he'd been working in the NBA. And he had to come in and not only learn his players, but he had to learn a whole new league. Right? I mean, that's why you talk about Arizona. Same thing with Arizona. Let's give Tommy Lloyd credit. Except for Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State, and who the hell was the fourth team that went over there? I guess BYU's the fourth team.
Right? Kevin Young, by the way, was the Suns as the associate head coach.
You think I know nothing? It's like but you look at Tommy Lloyd, for example. He had to learn Iowa State, had to learn Kansas State, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State. When you change conferences, you've got to learn everybody. Right? You've now got a schedule. We're going to play Houston. Well, yeah, you saw a couple of these teams in tournaments before, but now you see them on a regular basis. Yeah. After being used to playing USC, UCLA, Oregon State, Washington State, Stanford, Cal. Right? That's what you were used to playing. Twice. Right? And 2/3 of your schedule was that. Now 2/3 of your schedule, you're on a learning curve as to what you're seeing out there. And to their credit, they did a great job. Plus, they didn't have enough NIL to keep Ballo. Yeah.
By the way, the over-under on this game is 175.5, which means they're expecting BYU Alabama, which means they're expecting approximately 88 points a team is the current number they're looking at. So 90 is the number they're expecting everyone to get to. But as you mentioned,
I think the first team to 100 wins.
Yeah, BYU put up 80 in their first game, 91 in their second. Bama put up 90 in their first and 80 in their second. By the way, that Robert Morris game was thoroughly fun to watch, and I am upset Robert Morris did not hold on at the end because they were a very fun team, and they were going to be the Cinderella in this March Madness because
St. Mary's had not given up more than 74 points in a single game all year. Alabama scored 80. And Alabama, if they had not had so many self-inflicted turnovers in the first half, because St. Mary's was not turning them over.
No.
Alabama committed turnovers. They threw the ball away. You're like, what are we doing here?
So it was a fun weekend of basketball.
Too many.
One coming up.
Very quickly, though, on the negative side, too many missed layups.
Way too many missed layups.
Too many missed layups. I mean, it's one thing to miss threes or jump shots or whatever, but there are too many missed layups out there. I realize that the effort part of guys getting back and maybe blocking a shot from behind, that happens. But there have been too many times around the basket where there have been too many missed layups. Layups can't be a surprise. And it got to the point over the weekend, like I would make a layup. I'm talking about in traffic, and you'd be surprised by it because you got so used to another missed layup, another missed layup. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I don't get why. I feel like there are too many people rushing shots, right? And I think they're expecting the block to come from somewhere. You can't think that way. You've got to go out and go, screw it, right?
Yeah.
Okay? I don't know where you are, but I'm laying it up. You block it, we'll get the ball back.
Well, that was the thing. Auburn went at Kalkbrenner at the end. They made their way so they didn't have to deal with him blocking shots, but they went at him. They said, we're going to go try and get these layups anyway. Doesn't matter if you're here. We're running at you.
Right.
And that was something I respected that. Watching it, I'm like, this dude is going to block most people's shot.
Right.
But they're like, we're going to go at him and make him block our shot. If he doesn't block it, we're going to score.
And by the way, I was talking about math earlier. You notice what Wisconsin did at the end of the game. Tanjay did take a 2 to tie it, try and get it to overtime.
Yeah.
It was a tough shot.
Tough shot,
and there's no foul on that play. BYU played it really well. Tanjay kind of dribbled himself into trouble.
He got himself to a weird spot on the floor.
Yeah, an odd spot instead of getting himself to. I realized BYU's not going to make it comfortable for him, and it's obvious who's going to be the guy to take the shot.
He had 37, I think, at that point in the game.
Yeah, and I kept wondering if maybe this was one where you give it up to Blackwell. I mean, this is before. This is not me second guessing.
This was during it. You're like,
okay, when they were in the timeout, I'm thinking, wonder if this is a time to if Tanjay's open, I want him to shoot it. If he gets to a spot, I want you to give it up. if you get in trouble. Yes. Well, he got into trouble and he rushed one. And that was a great comeback by Wisconsin in that game. But they also went for a 2.
Yeah.
But most of the time you see
3.
Let's take a 3. Let's see. I can think. But again, Colorado State I agree with.
Yeah.
Look,
that was a good shot.
Right. Because you're not, because look at the position you're in, who you are, what you're doing. That was one of those we're going for it shot.
Yeah.
Okay? Well, you're down 1. Okay, they were down 2.
Yeah.
Right? Well, you're down 1. Anything gets you going.
And again, if Derek Quinn gets fouled going to the basket, feel pretty good about that too.
He's a good free throw shooter. Guess what? The worst you're probably going to come out of it is overtime. Right? Hey, you're suddenly like most of these teams like, I'll take a 3. Hey, Joe. Hey, yo, over here. You don't need the hero shot. Okay, I realize you want to be on one shining moment. Yeah. I got it. All right, let's all be on one shining moment. I got it.
Question for you, Steve. Will Hunter Dickinson's pass that went directly to a Arkansas player be on one shining moment? Good question to think about.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all on Sports Talk with Steve Jones.